there. Hey guys. 3, 2, 1. Hey guys. Okay, let's try one more time. Loud car. Hey guys, this is Stars at Dawn. Today I want to give a basic overview of mixing and introduce some really fundamental beginner level concepts. The first thing I want to talk about is setup. You should have a good space. You should have properly set up speakers, which means they should be the right distance apart. They should be the right angle, and the tweeters should be around ear level. I have good speakers and they're set up properly, but my room is actually incredibly bad. I am stuck in a corner. The room is almost a square, which is the worst shape you can have, and it's untreated and too small. If you're a beginner, you are probably in a similarly imperfect situation. There are still things you can do to have a decent sounding mix, even if you don't have a good room and you're working in imperfect conditions. The first thing to keep in mind is that speakers, room, dimensions, all of these things are actually secondary concerns. They're engineered to answer a specific question. How do I make accurate decisions in my mix? If you had bad speakers and a bad room, if you could still make accurate mixing decisions, you would be good. With that in mind, don't be overly concerned if you're working with imperfections. There's still a lot that you can do. The second note I want to make here, digging into this project, is I mix into compressors. And I know a lot of mixers don't do this. They don't like to do it. Not only do I like to do it, but I mix into several different compressors. And each of these compressors does a different thing. I'm not going to talk about how you can apply the same technique in this video, but I do want to draw attention to it. So return A is an optical compressor, which is going to be more gentle and more smooth. And this is used for higher sounds, string sounds, piano, certain synthesizer sounds, and some pads. B and C are both for bass and drums and low sounds. What B does is it provides punch, and what C does is it provides grit and dirties everything up. It saturates the drums pretty aggressively. Return D is for guitars and leads. This is a very aggressive compressor. And E is a little bit more. It is a saturator, a compressor, and also a utility which is widening the mix a lot. And this is only used for effects and strange, little sound effects and things. This is a really aggressive channel. So let's start. So the very first things that you want to dial in when you're mixing are the kick, the bass, and the snare. And the reason you want to dial those in is that the rest of your track will sit on top of those three elements, and those become the frame that everything else rests on. Okay, let's have a listen to this kick. Okay, that's good. So with the kick, I try to aim for about -8 dB. So that's a good kind of starting point for you. Let's bring the bass in. Okay, so I typically try to kind of match the kick and the bass in volume, and then at this point I usually make a decision. I don't always do this, but I think most tracks need to have a winner and a loser. So some tracks are going to be kick forward and some tracks are going to be bass forward. And it really depends on what you want to do and what part you want emphasized. So in this track, I want it to be bass forward. Okay, that's pretty nice. Now, the snare is part of this pre-mixed kit, unfortunately. So let's adjust the snare. Great. So the snare is going to be one of your loudest elements, and you want that to be a bit forward in the mix. To me, this sounds good. And what you're looking for is there a good groove? Does this sound good to your ears? Is one thing much louder than it should be? And one of the things I do is I try to envision a drummer and think, okay, if a drummer was playing this, about what would be the volumes be? All right, cool. Let's do the rest of these percussive elements. So we've got this, these snaps here. Ooh, that's nice. Okay. Breathing. And I believe this is a tiger growl and a dog noise, which make my riser. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so this is a really good rhythm section now. The next thing I'm going to bring in are is the rhythm guitar, which is right here. So it's a question of taste, but rhythm guitars need to work with the bass and the rhythm section. They can't step on it, but at the same time, guitars want to be loud and forward in the mix, and that's because guitars are awesome. This is very nice. The next thing we're going to do is these orchestral sections. So let's hear how these strings fit. I'm going to mix from here. All right, that sounds good. So anytime you're dealing with orchestras, you have to think about whether the orchestra is intended to be a sound effect or a texture, or if it's really a leading part of your song. And if what you imagine in your head is that there's really an orchestra there playing, that wants to be higher up in the mix, because orchestras are huge. And anytime you have strings or horns or a big wind section, you want to give people a sense of size. That's my philosophy anyways. Let's listen to this riser. Cool. And we have one more called String Up. Okay. So generally speaking, you want to go, you want to do your rhythm section, kick, bass, snare. And then once you have that built, you want to go through your instruments and go rhythm section, then low elements, and then high elements. And this is because it's the most difficult to dial in your low end. So it's good to do that without the distractions of the high end. And also, we hear high noises more easily than low noises. So they tend to be less difficult to dial in. Okay. So what do we have here? Let's do the piano. And the creepy organ. Or creepy music. What is this? Ah, this is a music box. The organ. Okay. Now let's go through our synthesizers. So we have this thing called metal texture. Which is exactly what it sounds like. So this is kind of a crunchy, textural, patty sound. Okay. Metal. The next thing we have are voice and vox. Anytime I write voice, this is a vocal element that is more like an instrument or an effect, but it won't be the lead vocal. And the reason this is important is that if you look at vox, this is not going through my return chains. This is actually going through a separate effects processing, which is a series of 5 compressors. So very similar to this, except I'm stacking a lot of compressors on here. And what that does is each of these compressors is providing a different element. So the first one is grit, and the other ones are unnamed because I am lazy. But they all add a different thing. So a sense of urgency, a sense of presence or power. Hello? Hello? But that's, a different video. Okay, so voice. What do we have here? Oh, cool. This is just me pinching my nose and singing, and then I pitch it up. There are a number of ways that I'm deciding what my levels should be as I'm mixing this. The first is whether it sounds good. Good means all of the elements sound like they belong together and they're working together to create music. Nothing is sticking out, nothing is buried. Everything is helping to shape the final track. The other thing is, as I'm listening, I am really tuning into my body and what it feels like to listen to it. But oftentimes, something will sound good, but I'll notice that I'm feeling uncomfortable. And usually what that means is that I have something too high, or there's too much resonance, maybe a single frequency is out, and I'm actually in pain. It's important to pay attention to that, first of all, because your body is giving you important clues about what you should be doing. But also, if you pay attention to your body and you react to discomfort, you're less likely to hurt yourself, hurt your ears, hurt your hearing, and you also won't hurt your listeners, especially if you're not going to have the track mastered, which could happen if you're going to play a track out as a DJ or as part of a live PA, and it's unreleased, you haven't mastered it yet. It's really good to tune into how you feel as you mix. Let's keep going. So I have some automation here because this should be higher, but I am just gonna... Okay, that seems pretty good. Oh, one more. Reverse vocal. All right, now the difficult one, the vocals. The vocals in this track are crazy. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of tracks. There's a lot of layers, but we will get through this. So some considerations with vocals. The vocal is one of the primary elements of the track. It needs to sit above everything else without sounding disconnected. And it needs to be clear enough for you to understand what is being sung without being too sharp. So one way you could increase the perceptibility or the understandability of a vocal is to give it a boost at 1000 hertz, and that will make it sound very telephonic, meaning the sound that you would hear through a telephone. So it brings the vocal out, but 1000 hertz hurts. So you have to be very careful about how you dial that in. And also, if your vocal is too out, you can give it a little dip at about 1000 hertz. But EQ, I'll do a different video on. For now, this is just about levels. So let's dig into this. Okay, and a creature's words are in my mind. It's there, it's watching all the time. All right, and let's see what this is. Saws. It's there. Ah, okay. That is a saw. Yeah, I remember this. So the story behind this is I was recording these vocals and someone started a saw outside of my studio. And it sounded so good in the original vocal that I wanted to add more of it to the track. So I went out and I recorded this saw and I layered it in. And I think if we listen to the original vocal, yeah, that's the saw is in there. So, okay, let's keep moving. It's there, it's watching all the time. Cool. So that sounds pretty good to me. Why do you hate me? 'Cause you make me, ah, this is a vocoded vocal. Why do you hate me? 'Cause you made me, I was made for you. And what is this? As I was building this track, this vocal here, my thinking was that this is the creature in my head, and this is me. So this is like a dialogue that's happening between me and this dark part of myself. Why do you hate me? 'Cause you made me. Do you hate me? Why do you hate me? 'Cause you made me. I was made for you. A creature's words so heavy when you know. All right, and that's basically done. Although I did just realize that I completely forgot the lead guitar, but that's okay because it is just a solo. which is right here. Let's find the solo. That looks like a solo. I just realized that I misspelled rhythm here. So, yeah. Well, that won't change my sound, so it's okay. That's why I have this automation here. I feel like, well, let's see how close I am. So 16.7, and originally I mixed it at -10. Ooh, so pretty high. I think I'm actually really feeling it at about 15. So let's change this. All right, so I would say that this is pretty much done. So here are some final thoughts. Normally, if I was mixing like this, I would be in my headphones, and then I would be on my speakers and back and forth. And the reason I do this is even though my speakers are a lot less reliable because of the room I'm in, the different sound waves will hit you at different times. And that can tell you a lot of information. And if you go into a professional studio, they will have big main speakers that are far away. They'll have mid-field speakers, which are a little closer, and then they'll have near-field speakers, which is like detail work. But most bedroom producers or hobbyists, they use near fields, and you can still get pretty good results just with them, especially if you're in a good room. But as I'm not, headphones, speakers, headphones. Another way that you can get around having an imperfect room is to have a reference mix. And what that is a track that you like the sound of, or that you envision your track sounding similar to, and you try and match the levels to it. That's actually the way a lot of professional mixers work, is with reference tracks. The other note is there are a couple of plugins that you can get that will make your mixing, your headphone mixing, a lot more accurate. So one of them is called Reference Studio, I think. And if I'm wrong, I will correct myself in the comments. But that is a plugin that adjusts the EQ of quite a few different headphones. If you have a supported headphone, it will adjust the EQing and make it a lot more flat. I don't have that because it's expensive, and I do fine without it, I guess. But the one that I do have, which I paid for, is Can Opener. What Can Opener does is give you crosstalk between the two channels of your headphones, which lets you get a little bit of an emulation of what it's like to actually be on speakers. And there's a number of different settings. The one that I tend to use is this Mix Engineer flat setting, because it's the most aggressive one, and it forces you to really work to make your mix sound good. The other thing that I mix in a lot, especially when I'm doing my EQing, is mono. And the reason to mix in mono is that because everything is being squished down to one channel, you can't hide in the two speakers. So if you have a sound that conflicts on the left and the right, they will become very obvious, and they force you to fix your problems. So I'll just turn on Can Opener really quickly so you can get an idea. It drops the volume quite a bit too. So this is mono. And if I turn it off, so it's ironic because to make your music sound good, you often need to make your listening experience much worse. So this plugin does not make my music sound better. Really good studio monitors do not make your listening more enjoyable. What they do is very brutally show you where your mistakes are, which is why a lot of studios also have a like a vibe system. So they hit a button and then it goes through the fun speakers and everyone can enjoy it, because that's an important part of making music too. It's just when you're making your critical mix decisions, you're not optimizing for your enjoyment. You're optimizing for really accurate sound reproduction. All right, so that is basically everything. I hope this was helpful. It was probably basic if you are already an intermediate or advanced producer. But I hope that this gives you a foundation to start with if you're new to this and you just need to begin mixing. And what is the process? How should you organize the mixing process to make it easy? All right, well, have a wonderful life, and thanks for watching. Bye.
Sometimes at night I stay up late, I look in the mirror and I love what I hate. Does the creature inside go back in its cage, or maybe it's fine to be strange? A creature's words, a sister's, all the things that